Hey YouTube, Lawler here as always. This weekend, if you guys didn't tune in, you got to see the Coupe de France / online main event cup, where teams are competing to fight at Paris Games Week. As always, I'm Lawler. I'm here to break down the action and give you guys some insight. And if you want more stuff like this as well, let me know in the comments down below. And while you're down there, like, subscribe, notifications, you guys know how it goes. But if you guys don't know, over the last 5 days, we got to see the top teams in EU actually coming to play and compete. What's cool about this is we very rarely get to see the top teams go toe-to-toe before the first open. So November 14th is when the RLCS season begins, and this is kind of a precursor to that. The way that it went down, if you guys are unfamiliar or haven't watched the previous videos, 6 teams playing in an online double round robin tournament, so they all play each other twice. And it gave us the opportunity to see some of the teams. But the thing that doesn't do is it doesn't really give you the details or kind of the tendencies or the styles or basically early iterations of what we think these teams are going to look like. So what we ended up doing on stream today, and this is kind of the tail end of the stream, we're going to kind of talk about the top teams in EU and some nods to Leos, to the 2 Danes 1 Brov roster that kept it close, who will also be competing at the Line Files. But I want to kind of focus on each of the teams and talk about some of the takeaways that I have from them, some of the positive, maybe the negative, some concerns. And I'm going to be hyperly critical. I think it's way too soon to actually give an opinion on who's going to be the best. But there is some things that I think we can notice out of the gate about, hey, how does this new player slot in? What do things look like? And stuff like that. So if you guys haven't seen it, if you guys don't know the new teams, KC, Drawley is out, Juicy is in, coming from the Gentlemates roster. Vitality, we now have seen Monkey Moon out. Stizzy is coming in from Dignitas. And then for the mates, former NIP roster of Nas and Oski being joined by Archie of GK. Those are the main 3 we want to focus on. We're going to kind of put on some gameplay footage in the background and talk about these openly. Right now I've got the series between KC and mates going. And to kind of talk about how I did this, I looked at a series from them earlier in the tournament, and then I looked at a series from them later in the tournament. Because I was out of town, I wasn't able to watch the full thing live, so we went back and watched the VODs. Let's start with mates. Mates out of the gate was concerning, but in a good way, because I thought Oski and Nas are very, very talented. We saw what they were capable of doing on land, but some of the issues I have with Nas continue to persist. Is he going to play too much hero ball? Is he going to kind of cut rotation and try to make up for something? And I think because Archie usually plays a little bit further back unless they're like really good on offense and aggressing, and he'll move forward, he does tend to not play for the possession. He plays a little bit of boom ball. He throws possession. And the nice thing that does is it will alleviate a pressure very easily. That little bit extra bit of time to get back in rotation or to go grab a boost should make up for some of the mishaps. Now, the concern is if that is happening and NAS is being conditioned to rotate a little bit further back, you are going to see some overlap. And you have already seen that earlier in their series, where NAS and Archie tend to double commit a couple times. But at the same time, when that's not an issue, it's weird to say, but they currently, in my opinion, probably have one of the best offenses in Europe. They are absolutely lethal on offense on the mate side. They're relentless, they're aggressive, and it is just one thing after another. While you look at, like, in this series, Casey is very formulaic. They have a position and a rotation. They're always spread out. They never get in each other's way. They will slowly whittle you down. They will eventually find a goal because you have no boost. But mates is the opposite. They're like, we're challenging everything. You don't have a chance to breathe. If you are not ready for this challenge, it will be a goal. And they just go one after another. And it is quite honestly overpowering and overwhelming defenses so far. Again, early iterations, but right now, mates as an offensive firepower is absolutely ridiculous, which is really exciting to see. A newer team being paired in with a new player automatically out of the gate, just coming in and just being like, we're going to be in your face, we're going to be aggressive. Now, on the opposite side, looking at this series, let's talk about KC. KC looks like they're picking up where they left off. It doesn't feel a whole lot different, if I'm being honest, which I think might be scary for a lot of other people. KC, to me, was the clear favorite in EU. They were the #1 team, ironically, a year ago when they played in Paris Games Week, which will be happening on the 1st of November this year. But after they played that first tournament, I was like, okay, yeah, this is the real deal. This is the team. So there was something to be said, I think, about KC, and can they find their form? Can they continue to play the way they have been? Are they going to be able to pick up where they left off with Juicy? And I think Juicy has been a pretty easy fit. I think he's a very malleable player. You can put him in any position. He'll figure it out. He's done a really good job with like mechanical individual skill and extending plays. I think it would help Juicy if he played a little bit more direct. And some of the touches are just, you know, hey, it happens. They're a little bit off. And he's playing a little bit wide to the net. But he's got to make sure that that solo play is very threatening and it draws somebody out. You know, it gets somebody off the ball or whatever that may be. That being said, everybody is moving through rotation cleanly. I haven't seen a double commit. The guys, for the most part, have really good coordination. A lot of fakes still, a lot of really good plays. But KC looks more of the same. Maybe a little bit of a slight regression, but that's to be expected when you bring in a new player. But overall, KC looks pretty dang solidified. The thing that makes them so good, their overwhelming offense and the ability to say every single position we've got locked down, we're going to take your corner boost, we're going to eventually come in with aggression, and we're going to put a good shot on target. None of that skipped a beat. Like KC, I don't have as much on because it does feel kind of one-to-one. Maybe a little bit of a slight regression, but overall, like KC looks really dang good. No surprise. When you got Vatira and a Talon on the team, that's to be expected. And I had no issues with Juicy because Juicy is very talented. So a lot of similarities to KC. Now, last but not least, let's talk about Vitality. Something that I really like about Vitality is so many people have been critical of Exotic. People have been like, Exotic needs to go. He's the weak link, so on and so forth. And the conversation from replay analysis and stuff that we've done is Exotic and Monkey Moon kind of fulfilled the same role. Their rotation by default overlapped in the same spot. And towards the tail end of the season, you started to see Exotic play a little bit wider, and the outlet passes and stuff were there, and they were able to get offense going. The issue is when you're under pressure, you kind of fall back to old tendencies, and you saw that overlap create more issues than positives. Now that that is not the case, there is something to be said about Exotic's performance. I think for me, he steals a lot of the show in these series. Obviously, Zen continues to do whatever the heck he wants. He's a highlight reel. But then Stizzy as well, 1v3ing with dribble plays, there is something to add to like the elevation element of being able to take a grounded approach, very dribble heavy, but then you have the high flying Zen and Exotic to work. It feels like Zen on offense has become this focal point where he is going to be the one to facilitate. It's either a solo from Zen, rightfully so, or he is going to pass it off to Exotic or pass it off to Stizzy. I don't really see Stizzy and Exotic communicating that way. But Zen being that kind of one to tie it all together that makes it happen has been really, really exciting. Then you see that same element. Exotic going for a solo play, but it's usually in the air. Stizzy going for a solo play, usually grounded with the dribble pass 3. It's been interesting to see that development because the first day that I watched their series, it was very disconjointed. It was slow. It was hesitant. There was no trust. But as the series have developed and as I've watched more, that's evolved. You're starting to see this high-flying Vitality. So to say there's a clear favorite right now, I think is really, really difficult. I think out of the gate right now, you do give the nod and the results show that to mates, which makes sense because they're just overwhelming offense. They're constantly in your face. They're punching you in the mouth. When you're trying to figure out a style or when you're trying to figure out how things feel, similar like we talked about in the roster video with the boys, you've only got one open to make it count. You want the team that can just peek out of the gate and be really good aggressively. In a very different sentiment but similar regard is Mates. I think Mates right now has that offensive firepower, which is why they're getting wins. And that being said, like Mates went 9-1, KC went 8-2, and Vitality went 7-3. Like they're all within a game of each other and they're taking games off of each other in those, like they're splitting series for the most part. So I think right now KC, because there is a level of familiarity, is getting that extra win. But that being said, I think Vitality as time progresses is going to be very, very scary. Just what Stizzy adds as a replacement for Monkey Moon, I think is just, it frees up Exotic. Like there's so many more touches, I think, in this series that you see Exotic just being impactful, being confident, not afraid that he's overlapping or tripping up. And I think the biggest takeaway, I don't see the crazy double commits. I don't see the weird overlap. I don't see the like awkwardness. Like rotation is pretty clean to a fact where I think they could probably get a bit more aggressive. I think they could cheat a little bit harder, but for a base level, Vitality, Mates, and KC all look really dang good. If I had to add a fourth to that, and we haven't seen him yet, I'm very excited to watch GK. But I'm curious to hear what you guys have to say. If you guys have another team that's in the mind, special shout out we'll give to Leost, the 2 Danes 1 Bruv roster. We'll see if they stick around and keep them throughout the entire RLCS season. But They went 4-6, I think, overall. They were the only team that came remotely close to staying competitive, which is why when you guys heard me talk about them initially with this tournament, I was like, yeah, they're a top 6, top 8 team. That synergy is definitely still there. I think Tempo is next up. That dude is going to get some opportunities depending on how things go. So, yeah, I think it's exciting. But GK, I would really want to see Jack and Seiko and Joyo play. I'm very excited to see how EU plays out. Little bit of regression, which is to be expected with new rosters. So I can't say definitively yet until we get into the RLCS. But for early looks, and then we're going to get to see them on LAN in just about a week. The only downfall is they're going to have like 0 warm-up time going into that tournament. So it's pretty even in that regard. But I would not be surprised if you have mates with your aggression and off the recent World Championship results from Oski and Nas, that they kind of shock some people. So pretty interesting stuff. I think EU, a little bit of a step back, kind of an even, while like KC was like 2 steps ahead. I feel like they've kind of balanced out. And you've got 4 really powerhouse teams going into international competition, but 6 are going to be the ones that matter because that's what makes it to the kickoff tournament in Copenhagen. Anyway, pretty early iteration. If you guys like more stuff like this, or if you want to see more kind of open conversation about what we're seeing with teams, let me know in the comments down below. Shout outs to everybody hanging out on the Twitch, everybody being here in the video, watching and hanging out. But that'll do it for me. We'll see you in the next one. Peace.